Good evening, everypony, and welcome to Commentary is Magic's stream on today, February the 4th, 2018, covering the Defenders of Equestria meta retrospective. I am, as always, Grandpaws.
I am in preview.
Big Cheese.
Arakat, and with us today, two special guests.
Critical Thought.
And Live in Silver.
And we are happy to be here today on the day of well-crafted owls, in case anyone is also paying attention to that. But here, today, we've got the Defenders of Equestria meta retrospective, where we'll cover notable decks and archetypes between the release of the set and the release of Equestria, starting with regionals, then BronyCon, then Gen Con.
Then Brony can't.
Then BronyCon, shouldn't forget that. I was there even. The format we'll be using for this retrospective is fairly simple. For each deck, we'll give a 2-ish minute description of it, covering what makes it tick and some other observations, then about 3 minutes to discuss, during which time, chat, we'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions about the decks too. But first, let's have a moment of silence for a pony who is no longer with us. Well, we should probably talk about that, actually. Anyway, with that, on to regionals. First up, we've got the aforementioned deck, One Purpose. We actually did a deck discourse on One Purpose shortly after regionals, going into how the deck works in more detail, but this is a true infinite one-turn kill deck of the combo variety that starts face-offs with Vapor Trail, brings Twilight into the face-off, flips a lot of cards, puts flipped events into its hand, then uses those events to start more face-offs. We felt it was worth mentioning again, mostly because a card getting banned unquestionably has an effect on the meta. Now, the deck didn't in actuality have much of an impact on the meta because it showed up out of the blue, wrecked just about everything at regionals all over the country, got ignored out of near universal expectation that it was almost certainly going to get banned, then got banned just before BronyCon and Gen Con. Net impact, a lot of groaning, recollection of bad memories from the last time a true combo deck reared its ugly head, and the creation of some new bad memories. Had it stuck around, I have no doubt that it would have caused the BronyCon and Gen Con meta to be different. Answers to Vapor Trail, Screwball, and Twilight would have been nigh on mandatory, forcing already crowded decks to make difficult decisions about what to cut, the ways to get rid of your own or donated friends, copies of Utterly Drained, Hand Hate, and perhaps even more esoteric ways of disrupting the combo. There is, however, another possibility, which is the deck could have been unveiled at Gen Con for a 4th-year repeat of the surprise combo deck messing the field up, but let's be honest here, that would have been really awful for everybody involved. So to Vapor Trail, I say good riddance. Here lies Vapor Trail. She was a good pony.
She was a good pony who did something wrong.
For a
think it was
thousand
Twilight's-
summers.
It was Twilight's fault.
I mean, to be fair,
Blame
this
Twilight.
is, what, the third time that Twilight's framed some other pony for doing bad things?
I think
Yeah.
it's only the second time. The third time she got caught.
Okay, fine. The point being, Twilight's a criminal mastermind. Anyway, Cheese, why don't you tell us about some of the decks that did very well at BronyCon?
Oh, are we not gonna talk about this?
Oh, no, we should totally talk about that. I'm doing good, yeah.
Yeah.
You doing good?
Yeah, so this deck was interesting to say the least.
The latest.
Yes. I mean, there were people across the country playing this deck.
I think we had something like eight total people across multiple different regionals playing this. It may have been higher than that. I know we had 4 at one regionals alone, and the mirror match with this deck was absolutely hilarious.
Yeah.
So
It was pretty fun.
yeah, the thing says here, Associate Scum, Bugle, Big Cheese, Arakat, Living Silver, Tyler, Blue Fairy, Sea Pancake, and Skitterbeat.
Yeah, that's a lot of people.
And Scum of the Earth, of course, is Grandpa's.
Of course. I own that title proudly.
I think it was played at every regional on the West Coast.
It was.
No, inaccurate. It did not show up to the Vancouver regional.
We didn't take it up there?
No.
Oh,
That's
because
right.
it was Monday.
That's right. So this was just a refined version of an existing engine that had been around for a while, the One Pace engine, or basically a showdown engine.
Right.
And it's part of the reason that we really haven't seen any viable cards that can create face-offs on their own in terms of events, that is, since then. Because it turns out that's really, really dangerous.
Especially when it costs 0.
Starting an event,
Or
sorry,
negative
starting a
1.
face-off for free and gaining an action token, if you win, is bad.
I like gaining 2 action tokens.
Yeah, 2 is good. With Magic Duel.
Now, what's interesting?
Studious.
What's interesting here is as more and more cards got added to the meta, and combo decks had more and more disruption that they had to try to deal with, this old engine could still be utilized simply because you needed very few cards to actually be able to go off successfully here, because most of what you had was on your main. And because of that, you could oftentimes go off with minimal AT if you were lucky as early as turn 3, although I think Cheese had the theoretical turn 2 combo once.
Ugh.
Yeah.
It was magical Christmas time. But generally, this deck could go off by turn 4 without disruption. And there wasn't really much to disrupt because you weren't playing anything but Vapor Trail unless you really had to.
You know, unless your opponent played a not all tied up, uneven ground. That was painful.
That's
Did you go and grab Leo's version of the deck here, Aura? Because this is running a smooth and we
Yeah.
were not.
This is my version. This is. I ran the smooths anticipating the mirror match.
There were actually a lot of minor variants on this. Like some ran 2 Nightmare Stars, some ran 0, so on and so forth.
The other thing to note when running the mirror match is that Screwball was necessary because you had to have a friend to face off against for Vapor Trail to fight. So it ended up, the mirror matches ended up being whoever could find their Screwball first and putting it into play.
Yep.
Because it was that easy to set everything else up.
which really kind of says something about how dangerous this thing was.
I'm glad it didn't show up at Gen Con.
Yeah.
Pretty sure.
I'm sorry, Vapor Trail, but you were a mandatory sacrifice.
Yeah.
Next deck.
Yeah, it doesn't look like chat has much to say about this deck, which is surprising, honestly.
A lot of bird watchers looking at owls, I think.
Yeah, that's probably true.
So, up next is we don't actually have a name for this deck, but it's a relatively unknown deck, and it took first place at BronyCon. This was a orange, white, purple toolbox control deck, and it relied on milling the opponent using Sweetie Belle, most traditional, and Nightmare Moon, while keeping them from confronting by recurring Bailout and Popping Corn with everyone's favorite Pegasus, F-Stop.
Yeah, stop.
F-Stop. So an interesting choice of mod here. Felt like we were going back to the rock and rave meta, but so you've got really like 3 choices for mains in orange. So you have mod, AJ, Luna, and the choice of mod here was it's the easiest to flip for this kind of deck.
Did
My
you forget
bad.
to transition
I
the
forgot
decks?
to show the deck.
Yeah, it was.
I'm
I
too
assumed I
engrossed
was
in-
just delayed.
No, way too engrossed in what Cheese is doing.
Uh-huh.
There we go.
Yep.
So, so mod. She's the easiest to flip for this kind of deck. Like AJ's easier to flip if you're trying to farm. But we don't have 21 troublemakers in this deck, unlike some other decks.
Like a good and proper farming deck, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, we'll talk about the good and proper farming deck soon enough.
And so so she's easy to flip, and she has the potential to just confront problems by herself. She can be up to 7 power, and with Nightmare Moon, you're probably likely to get there.
With Styx, she could be up to 10.
Yeah, we're not doing this Equestria retrospective yet. That's It's going to be later.
Retrospective.
Anyway. And she can also, so you'll notice Madame Fleur, or how do you
Madame
pronounce
Lafleur.
the Fleur? The card hasn't seen play much, because Maud hasn't seen play much, but with her, you could actually flip Maud turn 1. And open up your orange immediately, and like you could be playing Popping Horn turn, your opponent's turn 1.
That's some old school tech there.
It really is. As for matchups, this is actually pretty good against aggro decks such as Hot Wings, as it has just so many ways to stop confronts. And Hot Wings especially hates this because it's got Hasty Friends that it uses to move Luna over. And as soon as you play that, or after you play that Hasty Friend, you're not getting it back. So you just wasted one of your Hasties. And it can really set Hot Wings back. It's also good against combo because the amount of hand disruption it has. And it can handle farm if it can get the bailouts and F-stop out, because it can just keep AJ permanently exhausted. And AJ kind of hates that, along with boxes. And I think, so yeah, Bugle, you had a game, the actual top 2 game against this at BrodyCon. What were your thoughts about it?
Well, my thoughts were, wow, this is very, very similar to a deck I made, and I was pleased to see someone else come up with the idea.
Yes, Popping Corn.
Well, not just Popping Corn. We did a deck discourse on it. Classic Rock.
Oh yeah, it was the update to that.
Well,
it was basically the update to that.
Yeah, he says that he built this on his own, and we have no reason to disbelieve him. But yeah, it's very, very similar to Classic Rock. Unfortunately, either we did not get his name for it, or we forgot, or whatever. But yeah, it can do some work. Sweetie Belle is a very, very powerful card.
I think this was the first time we actually saw a deck with the primary goal of trying to mill the opponent out. Well, secondary goal, I should say.
Yeah. I mean, it showed up at BabsCon.
Well, there was a mill deck at BabsCon, but that was a combo assassin list.
Fair enough.
That was a very, very different list. It was not toolbox control.
No, it was not.
And that was that deck's entire game plan, was milling the opponent out. Whereas this one was, as we said, kind of relying on the old Stopping Corn engine, and that refers to a deck that existed back during Absolute Discord, using F-Stop and Popping Corn, and basically just telling your opponent no every single turn.
Yeah, absolutely.
And removal back then was a lot worse than it is now.
No, it's going to work.
Punch, orange. Wait, no,
berry punch, orange swirl, no belly flops.
Into belly flop, yeah.
Not even rolling tones.
Yeah.
You had to rely on downright dangerous.
And I think there was when Camo Mod was seeing play.
That was also when 3 power was just safe.
Yep.
We had ways to get rid of 2 power friends and ways to get rid of 4+ power friends.
You had Yoink. Don't forget about Yoink.
This is true. Yoink did show up. And you could get a party bomb to 3.
That was also back when White had Dismissal with Rarity's Epiphany. We'll talk more about that later. There's another deck that used that.
Anyway, yeah, this was a fun deck. I like the various ways it has to flip Mod. It can go turn 1 Applejack into Seabreeze's Flower. Did I need that Seabreeze's Flower? No, but I wanted to flip Mod.
Turn 1 Madame Lafleur on her own. Yeah, there's multiple options here. Yep. I think the key that we can kind of take away from this deck as we move into the others is that little Pegasus up there, that F-stop, and that 3 in the upper left-hand corner. Just go ahead and watch that, because
you're going to see that a lot.
It won't always be in that spot, but yeah, you will see it a lot.
Next deck?
Let's do the next deck.
Critical, tell us about your little brainchild here.
Oh yeah, I'm very proud of it. Okay, so Cruel Mistress, it's a purple-white toolbox control deck. It has some orange splash just for AT generation and to flip. It premiered in Colorado Springs, not Colorado Springs, Colorado Regionals. It got second place at BronyCon, and it got top 8 at Regionals. Its primary strategy is to toolbox and gyro like a lot of control decks at the time. It ran single copies of events, and it would just recur them over and over again. Its secondary strategy was kind of my brainchild, along with Flurry Flurry. He kind of had a proto of the strategy, but it involved Spoiled Rich, Alicorn Amulet, Cruel Taskmistress, Jet Set and Upper Crust, the Schmooze, all those tools, creating some synergy. And the primary thing you wanted to do was play Spoiled Rich, drag all the opponent's friends, and not yours, Bugle.
Shush.
And then also drag all their troublemakers over and yours. Just a huge destruction thing. And then afterwards, use Cruel Taskmistress, and you would probably just banish everything on their board, which was really fun.
Yeah, since Spoiled Rich was usually larger than their main.
Yeah, so it would dodge the blast. And it had other little parts. You would usually, after establishing that, you'd want to have Alicorn Amulet on the Troublemaker. Ideally, it would be Jet Set and Upper Crust, though the Schmooze had its purposes. Then afterwards, you would want to have F-Stop and Portal, and you would want to just keep portaling Spoiled Rich and just dragging everything, and then, if appropriate, get Cruel Taskmistress Black back and blow it up. Well, these combinations are strong. It also had some nice little things just with its individual parts. Like Jet Set with Alicorn Amulet was really mean against farm decks. You could just smash any epic or anything else, and they wouldn't have much tools to deal with it, and they couldn't even challenge the Troublemaker and use AJ's Epiphany. Sorry, I'm having a few issues here.
One of the catches, I've used the Spoiled Rich and Cruel Taskmistress combination before, and one of the challenges with it is what happens when you do get friends that are larger than 3 power. Then you end up having to use your other events to manage those.
Was one of the unfortunate things that I really didn't account for a while, because no decks were really using anything where that strategy didn't work around my area.
Yeah, the Singleton Rarities Epiphany was a method of dealing with it, since generally you weren't seeing friends with lots of resources, or at least not resources being played on them. But that would mean that you'd have to expend a gyro to find that, and you'd also have to expend a gyro to find your Cruel Taskmistress, and that's taking up 2 of those right there.
Oh, there is some meticulous too, but yeah, it can take some time.
Yeah, one of the weaknesses of the deck was that it usually ended up digging with AT, and sometimes somebody would play a jerk face, and some people were still using Nightmare Moon Deep Darkness, and that would be a pain.
Oh, as she always is.
Mm-hmm.
How did Changeling Throne work in this deck for you, Critical?
I'm sorry, what was that?
How did Changeling Throne work for you in this deck?
I think I changed my mind and I started using just 2 photo finishes, but Changeling Throne, its original purpose was to just kind of slow up certain aggro decks, like Hot Wings.
How were you slowing Hot Wings with Changeling Throne, with its event tax only taking place during face-offs?
It's not even events; it's cards,
Or
but
cards.
only face-offs. Yes.
Yeah, it was pretty much only so if somebody was going to drop something like it. I didn't have very strong reasoning. I just wanted more diversity than anything, and so that's why eventually I was like, oh yeah, it should just be 2 photo finishes.
Yeah, because I did play this at BronyCon. I got the second place with it, and it worked out fairly nice for me, especially when I learned how it actually worked. But I did not particularly care for the Changeling Throne. The only time it mattered was one time I brought it back with Rary's Epiphany.
Yeah, one synergy that you didn't actually mention here so far that I really like is using the smooths with Luna's Future, as that can basically buy you 3 or 4 turns on its own, especially if you have an Alicorn Amulet on it. The Smooze has the ability, whenever he would be defeated, you can remove a +1 power counter from him, and if you do, he's not defeated instead. That is not the same as how POW functions from Defenders of Equestria, where if one of your troublemakers would be defeated, or would be, dismissed, you can turn it face down. This stops your opponent from scoring the points on it, and it leaves the troublemaker face up. So you could just kind of do that well about as often as you needed. And with 3 Alicorn Amulets, it was not unreasonable to see a Smooze at one problem with one, and a Jet Set and a Request or a Mimics at the other problem with another. Or even just a Nightmare Moon if you wanted to mill your opponent out. Yeah, clever synergies though.
Yeah, thank you. I was really proud of it.
Yeah,
That's a pretty
worked well.
impressive finish. Speaking of impressive finishes, though, Bugle, I think you've got something to say on the subject.
Yeah, we are not out of the toolbox control woods yet.
Also, hold on. Let's look at the 3 f-stops. 3 f-stops.
I see your 3 f-stops. Hey,
All right.
let's look at 3 more f-stops.
20 f-stops?
You want
Okay.
you want to look at 3 more f-stops?
Sure. We can look at 3 more f-stops.
They moved quite a bit, but look, there's 3 f-stops. Bugle, tell us about this thing.
Okay. So moving on to Gen Con, we are starting at the top. First place, we have Vinyl's Bag of Tricks, or
Finals bag
VBOT.
of what?
Tricks, which are for rabbits.
I thought they were for kids.
They are for kids.
So VBOT may be a familiar deck to many of our viewers, as it was featured in our Marks and Time meta retrospective last year. Pink, purple, and white, this toolbox control deck first premiered at BabsCon 2017, yes, before Defenders hit, and returned at Everfree the next month, taking a first place and second place respectively. VBOT has a simple mission statement: be prepared for anything. To accomplish this, rather than running playsets of Most Answer cards, it had run 1 or 2 copies of as wide a selection of cards as possible to handle almost any situation imaginable. It can afford this much flexibility due to a combination of Vinyl's extra draw per turn, the AT gain and Meticulous from Paper Twilight, the pseudo AT gain and card draw from Rainbow Shine, and Gyro's ability to find events at the drop of a hat. The combination of these cards tends to let VBOT have the exact card it needs alongside the AT it needs to play it exactly when it needs it. The kicker to all of this is f-stop. Those 3 f-stops. He is the powerhouse photographer pony who lets you play the same event every single turn for the rest of the game, making thwarting opposing plans simple. Where the original ran just 1 copy, this version is running a full 3, making the deck sing better than ever before. The other major new inclusion is, of course, the Changeling Mimics, giving VBOT a very powerful troublemaker with utility against almost any opponent.
Should be 2 bonus cough.
In addition to the suite of events that can handle just about any situation, it has the dreaded Study Session plus Final Breakdown combo. Study Session, which causes all opposing friends to come into play exhausted, and then you use Breakdown to exhaust Breakdown to dismiss any exhausted friend. This can wreak havoc with many a strategy, especially those counting on key cards to do things, and many aggro decks. The deck's ultimate goal is complete lockdown, a Trollmaker at each problem, the perfect event to counter the opponent's plans, and an F-stop to recur that event again and again and again. So, while it has a good matchup against many decks due to its crazy flexibility, its biggest weaknesses are mass or heavy removal strategies, and cards that banish things from the discard pile, which we'll see a few of soon here, as it relies a great deal on having both of those things. But if left unchecked, and with the right combination of skill and luck, it can handle just about anything.
Rainbow Shine was a huge inclusion for you here for getting your color entry online early.
Oh yeah, absolutely. She everything she does is great for this deck.
Quack.
I sadly never lived the dream of turn 1 Rainbow Shine, opponent then DFOs, you draw a card off Rainbow Shine, flip into the single copy of Figuring Out Friendship, and then exhaust Rainbow Shine to play Magical Misfire just to flip Vinyl.
That sounds terrible.
It's amazing.
It sounds awful.
For you or your opponent?
For you.
Wait, what? Figuring Out's Friendship? Is that in this build?
There's a single copy.
First problem in the problem list.
Oh, problem list. There we go. Yep.
Yeah, Toolbox Event Control was definitely the name of the game, at least for a while. And VBot had definitely been around for a while, and the consistency that was added with Defenders of Equestria really, really helped.
Yes. Yeah, it's only running 7 Defenders cards, but they're all fantastic.
Yep. Let's see, you got the 3 Mimics,
Something.
you've got the 3 Rainbow Shines, and then you've got what?
Single
One
belly flop.
Yeah, the 1 belly flop.
Uh,
By the way, take note, I would wager this is the only time you're ever going to see belly flop in a deck without Berry Punch and Orange Swirl.
And I'm
pretty close.
guessing because of the synergy with Awkward Quinceañera, you can pull those
Partly.
dispensable tokens out.
Partly, that is why there are 2 Quinceañeras, but also Gyro into belly flop gets rid of anything for 2 AT.
Ah,
And you've got a cleaning up so you can bring stuff back.
Yes.
Gyro is definitely something you want to bring back.
Yep. It's a good deck. I don't know what else to say.
Goodbye, F-stop.
Nobody liked you, F-Stop.
I was about to say, Vapor Trail might have been a good pony, but F-Stop not so much.
F-Stop was not a good pony. F-Stop was a very bad pony.
He's what, Muckraker?
He knows what he did.
That's not an honorific.
No.
Anyway, that's our first place. Grandpas, why don't you tell us about our second place deck at Gen Con?
Sure. So, falling on the complete opposite end of the flexibility spectrum as VBot, a deck called Butts came out of nowhere and surprised a significant portion of the playing field with its efficacy in moving away from the typical toolbox control strategy of previous pink-purple decks, and instead opting for consistent plays and a stronger board presence. Eschewing staple cards like F-Stop and Gyro, Butts instead relied on full playsets of what it viewed to be its most important cards, including the nasty synergy between Study Session and DJ Pony Breakdown, which you already mentioned, Bugle, as well as removal tools like Napcakes, Pinky's Epiphany, and Food Fight. Rainbow Shine and Paper Twilight would ensure that AT generation or cost reduction would be maximized, and Mayor served as a repeatable source of resource removal in place of a recurable event like Special Beam Cannon, giving the deck a better matchup against various orange lists which were running tools like Appaloosa, Clipped Wings, and Under Arrest. The real power in this deck came from its ability to suddenly produce tremendous power on board with Shining Armor Crystal Prince and the natural card draw gained through Vinyl as a main, and the 2 copies of Dip in the Pool to create equally powerful tokens of Shining Armor. On top of this, the tech inclusion of 2 copies of Just Clowning Around, along with 2 Fire When Readies in the problem deck, meant that a relatively low-value problem setup could be replaced in an instant, allowing for confronts around pesky troublemakers and surprising DFOs worth up to 5 bonus points. I'm not salty about that at all. At 53 cards, there was a little bit of padding from the turn-by-turn disruption of Nightmare Moon and Chrono Trigger, but it did also mean that finding any individual piece would be especially difficult, even more so if they were a singleton like Minuet, Ursa Vanquisher, or Destiny Drain. In spite of this, though, Butts did do an excellent job of showing that there was room in the meta for more than one pink-purple control deck, and that sometimes moving away from the tried and true could still produce surprisingly pleasing results.
Where's Skitter?
Yeah, his 53 card deck, Skitter must be
Ecstatic right now?
that's a good word for it, yeah.
Yeah, this thing was a ton of fun to play against. I will say that it had a very different play style than VBot, despite several cards being the same. Ursa Vanquisher, DJ Pony Breakdown, Rainbow Shine, things like that. But I guess the word I would be looking for was it just felt more fair, because this deck elected for no discard pile recursion.
Not no. It does have
Or,
3
I'm sorry.
epiphanies.
Yes, okay. No mass discord pile recursion through juggling routine, and no event recursion
Discord
in
pile.
the deck. Additionally, the game just had a tendency to move faster, and that was a pleasing experience overall, because Shining Armor, turns out, is a big pony, and big ponies can beat up problems quite a bit.
Yeah.
Now, the problem deck is a little difficult to confront here. You'll notice that
He has 6 unconfrontable problems.
well, you say unconfrontable, but he's got Singing Barrel in the deck.
Okay, that's true.
The only problems that are really unconfrontable are Blackmail, where P simply doesn't have enough white to be able to do this, and Fire When Ready, which
It's Fire When
I'm
Ready.
going to go out on a limb here and say that that is an unconfrontable problem. We know that's not technically true, but we're not getting into that now.
I've played a game where somebody has hard confronted it with me. It was
I
King
know.
Utopia.
I've seen it too. It's realistically not a confrontable problem.
Yes.
Bugle, what were your thoughts?
Oh, this was you may have taken the crown jewel here. He did like your matchup better, but our finals matchup was definitely one of the best matches I've ever played. The decks do, like you said, they do play very differently. Part of that was, having 3 breakdowns and 3 study sessions instead of just 2 and 2. It let him get that combo faster than I could usually.
That's true. It also means that up against an opponent that is relying on cards that need to exhaust, like Ursa Vanquisher, F-Stop, or Rainbow Shine, that's not really a play you can make easily.
Yeah. Though the Mares did not work out for him against study session.
Would that have anything to do with Changeling Mimics naming events?
No, it had everything to do with she's exhausted. You can't exhaust her when she's already exhausted.
Yeah, if your opponent has a DJ Pony Breakdown and a study session on the field, Mayor is not going to help you out.
Yeah.
You need to get rid of the breakdown first, and turns out that's not exactly easy to do.
Yeah.
The deck can do it though.
Oh, yeah.
This deck, we're going to see his brother's deck in a moment here. These 2 brothers, they're people to watch out for this upcoming Gen Con. They thought outside the box, and it did them well.
Being that both decks had they both had over 45 minutes. 45 cards.
Let's see. Let's talk about some top 4 decks. Cheese?
Farm!
Apples.
So, yes, apples. So up next, we've got mostly friendless AJ Farm. So this type of deck has been seen reasonably often during the Defenders meta, and it took top 8 and top 4 at Gen Con. So this almost entirely orange deck packed with 21 troublemakers. And it has 2 goals: defeat as many troublemakers as possible and prevent the opponent from double confronting. Now, it does that by popping corn, Flim and Flam, bail out. So it has quite a bit of tools. It doesn't have any recursion to get them back, but Applejack's pretty fast, actually, at defeating troublemakers, especially when she has 21 of them. Like, I think that's the most troublemakers we have ever seen in a single deck.
If Feathers were here, she'd say it's not enough.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't see any chrono triggers in here.
And all but 2 are villains. You'll note that it actually
6, but sure.
2.
All but 2 of the 7 that are being run are villains.
And so note it's got a pink card. And it has 2 cards to get into it and 2 to get it. Generally, that's because Bell Tower is not really needed until later in the game, as you want to defend things, really, or to immediately frighten things, or because one of the problems with AJ Farm can be if you defeat a troublemaker, well, now you're opening up for your opponent to either double confront or play a dilemma and then double confront, and that can really just help lock down the problems. I think, was it Richard that got top 4 with this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Gen Con? Yeah. And so I had to fight against this my final game of Swiss, and I lost because sometimes AJ just gets away, and if you can't lock her down, then she's just gonna eat everything.
She's gonna sell you a lot of apples.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I managed to force a draw against it, and that was about it.
I also like the single copy of Destiny Drain.
Yep.
I think that was mostly there in case combo showed up.
Yep.
Like it has some uses against other decks, but
To be fair, he was one of the 2 people who knew combo was showing up.
Yeah, but Feathers was the original author of
Yes.
this list, and she put in Destiny Drain because she knew that pie eating contest was a thing.
Yes.
yeah, it was actually interesting. It was either, I think it was like the day before we on Thursday or Friday or whatever we played. Richard was asking me, he's like, "What do I run? What do I run?" I'm like, I just run farm. And turns out that hurt me. But yeah, I think this is exactly the same deck that the exact list that Feathers ran at.
It's very similar. I think Feathers actually had a full 3 Destiny drains, but he built this from watching the stream and just pausing and taking note of what cards were there and guessing how many of each copy there were.
Yeah.
Also worth
watching
noting
the
is
recording, but
the Flim and Flam Shrewd Schemers, which is a fantastic card at stopping DFOs against aggro.
Yeah, he did bring that up. It's an
But
important
yeah,
part.
it is amazing at doing
More
that.
importantly, it's an Earth Pony.
No, it's not.
It's a unicorn.
Yeah. It's totally an Earth Pony. It's an honorary Earth Pony in this deck.
What do you call those things coming out of their heads?
Masks.
Earths.
Party hats.
It's not a tumor.
It's totally an honorary Earth Pony in this deck.
All right, let's move to the next list.
Yes, our other top 4 deck. This is Spookum Makookum. So going into Gen Con, many people expected a lot of aggro decks to be played there. Hot Wings, which we'll get to soon, had run over many originals and was on just about everyone's mind. Little did anyone suspect that the top aggro deck of the year would come out of nowhere, and it wasn't even using blue main. Spookum Makookum, an Applejack, ambassador of honesty, blue aggro deck, almost took Gen Con by storm with its unorthodox approach to aggro. Eschewing the speed offered by Bluna, Octavia, and Scootaloo, and even the utility of Vinyl, Spookum opts instead to use a main that's big. A 5, 7, or even 9 power main can confront a lot, after all. And moving counters off of AJ to other friends for free is always a good way to save AT on confronting. Speaking of AT efficiency, this deck actually has plenty of that. 3 Cloud Chasers, 2 Wonderbolt Stadiums, and even 2 Apple Bloom Remarkables can reduce the cost of its cards, letting it pull off plays that normally one wouldn't be able to do on just the turn's AT. They also allow the deck to run a playset of Jerk Fit on even grounds without hampering themselves too much. The cost of discarding a card to Apple Bloom is also deceptively small due to the deck's namesake, Smart Cookie, who is more than willing to feast on every card you discard to Apple Bloom, or any of your other ways to get cards into the discard, for which there are multiple. Oh, and if you're looking for DFOs on turn 2, this deck's got them. Well, they're a little trickier than something like Hot Wings. Assuming the opponent's running a 4 bonus problem, you can do something like play Apple Bloom and Smart Cookie to your problem turn 1. Then turn 2, play We'll Make Our Mark, and we'll make our mark, moving Applejack to their 4 wild problem, and finishing up by banishing every card in your discard to make Smart Cookie large enough to confront. And that's just one way of
go ahead
settling.
and question that where you're getting the 2 blue from We'll Make Our Mark.
Oh, that's a good point. I know there's some. Oh, you can. I think you can do this by playing Rainbow Dash. The 3 power Rainbow Dash.
Okay.
Or even tank, I think. But yes, I did skip a step. But there are ways. But yeah, so despite its speed, power, and efficiency, Spookum does have a few weaknesses. Most notably of which is that its methods of busting through TMs are actually a bit poor, relying on either the very expensive Element of Honesty Friend, or We'll Make Our Mark, which only lets a single character challenge Troublemaker, which might very well be a very large Applejack, but your Applejack might not be big. It can also have trouble with specific breeds of control, though it's using a large main as well as a multitude of versatile friends can prove to be a challenge for any non-purple-pink control deck to fully stop its mark towards 15 points. Which happens to be the only things it lost to at Gen Con, actually.
Yeah, problem deck was solid, relatively easy for it to confront.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's something that, we're going to talk about here in a moment, but the problem deck is one of the most overlooked sections of aggro decks. And just about every problem here was going to be confrontable by AJ plus a single character, and in some cases, just AJ herself.
Yep.
The one exception really being Call of the Cutie is pretty big and would require AJ to get pretty large, and Nightmare Knight One of Fright is going to need an Orchard Blossom there.
However, he did use Call of the Cutie really efficiently, dropping counters from AJ onto other characters and double boosting using it.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, it was really effective use of power passing with this deck.
Go ahead, Leo.
I was also going to note that there is 3 dilemmas as well for busting troublemakers or helping get around them.
Oh, that is true. That can help, though I am less sold on dilemmas busting troublemakers than I used to be. Control decks have planned for it and are ready. So it can help for sure.
With that, we will mention one other deck that got into top 8 before we move on. Cruel Mistress, as noted earlier, did make a impressive showing at top 8. A couple of minor differences from the list we looked at earlier, but it's basically the same general idea.
Yep. Yeah, so we've already covered 2 of our top 8 decks.
Shall we talk about another one?
Yeah, how about that, Cheese? Want to talk about a top 8 deck that no one's heard of?
No, I don't want to talk about
nobody's
any
heard
decks.
of this deck. Well, talk about it anyway.
It's a really obscure deck. You've probably never heard of it.
No, that was
Hot Wings?
That was a different deck, actually.
No one's heard about Hot Wings.
What's hot wings?
It's
So-
what everyone should have been eating tonight while watching excellent birds.
By far, the most popular deck in the Defenders meta was Hot Wings. It was seen all across the world since soon after the Defenders release, and even took 4 spots in the top 16 at Gen Con. Hot Wings is a blue-pink deck that focuses on getting to 15 points as fast as possible while preventing your opponent from doing the same, or getting in the way. While its draw deck is actually quite powerful, you've got Night Gliders, because Night Glider's awesome, and a bunch of fun cards. The most important part of the deck is actually its problem deck, which is entirely designed around having high bonuses and being able to confront any problem by just playing a single friend and moving up Luna. And losing these problems in core has actually hurt.
Oh, I think we lost Cheese there.
Yeah, we're having some fun technical difficulties today.
I believe he was going to say that losing these problems in core has
Significantly.
hurt. Yes, significantly.
There
you go.
My connection's very bad right now. So this has been a fun deck. I've actually played it a lot. Didn't play it at Gen Con, but it did have a pretty good showing, but didn't win. I'm sure part of that is because it was just so popular and everyone had both experience playing against it and had tuned their decks against it.
Yeah, the meta had adjusted by this point in time.
Mhm.
Hot Wings was one of the first decks to come out of the Defenders release.
If not the first.
Yeah, I think this thing was in brewing for quite some time. Bluna is just such a house when it comes to being able to DFO efficiently, and even with her having suffered since High Magic when the rule was changed regarding scoring problem bonuses upon confronting for the first time, there are very few mains that can still match her burst potential.
Yeah. Oh, if we still had that, this deck would be even crazier.
If we still had that, something out of this deck would have been banned.
Angel Wings was next on the list.
Yes, she was.
Yeah, Angel Wings. Angel Wings may have less text than Spitfire, but she proved to be a lot. Earn that rare slot. I think she was pretty powerful.
And a really critical thing about this deck is just how much it actually puts into disrupting the opponent. Like, it's an aggro deck, but it has quite a bit of tempo. I think it's 12 slots.
15 if you're counting the Berry Punch
14
and
if you
Swirl.
want to count Cardboard Box. But yeah, you've got the 2 Frightens, Berry Punch, Horn Swirl, and Belly Flop, and Cardboard Box. And you can kind of sort of count Sorin.
I mean, there's the Tyrix Reigns as well.
Yeah, and Tyrix Reign. Just so many ways to mess with your opponent.
Yeah.
And most of them at immediate speed.
And everyone's favorite Griffin in here.
Gabby.
Do you even draw cards, bro?
Do you even draw?
Yep, Hot Wings was a fun deck, but it is time for it to go bye-bye.
Yeah, it can still be played in core, just it doesn't work quite as well as it used to.
No.
Though,
Like the entire draw deck, like you can swap Lily for something and Seabreeze for trash. It's basically the same, but it doesn't work because of the problems.
Yeah.
And all of those delicious 2 and 5 bonuses go bye-bye. And the 1/3 bonus.
Yeah. Though speaking of Hot Wings, there was also a top 16 deck that was basically ultra rareless Hot Wings. It called Imagine What I Can Do with Ultra Rares. It does use Scootaloo instead of Bluna, but that's not an ultra rare, so.
Yeah, this was basically the original hot variant, just swapping vinyl for Scootaloo.
Yep, and throwing in tanks instead of Night Glider. Yeah, it's basically Hot Wings, just slightly different.
Yep.
It's certainly made of chicken, and it's pretty spicy. Too soon.
Well, why don't you talk about our very last top 8 deck?
Nah, I'm feeling mean. The main deck is the brainchild of the biggest yellow fan of the game, despite the deck having no yellow. Instead, it's a white, purple, orange control deck that can use several different control strategies depending on how the game is going, and is the only deck made by Changing Pretender in Top 16. Its creator piloted it to a Top 8 finish at Gen Con. It's in what you call the usual suspect colors for a control deck, and as expected, it packs most of the cards you'd suspect would form the core of such a deck in those colors. It wants to play the long game. It's got Paper Twilight, it's got a Factory Jack, it's got everyone's favorite, I don't even know what to call those, accessory caterer spoons, Gyro, F-Stop, and Dr. Who's Time Loop. These last three, along with a wide suite of events, enable it to play a very toolboxy control strategy where it digs up just the one event it needs to wreck the opponent, a chaos control strategy by keeping something very annoying on top of its deck, such as that Frozen and Magicite there, and an event recurrence control strategy by recovering the same event and playing it turn after turn with F-Stop. Hey, remember how we said those things were going to be all over the place? Yeah, look, hey, there's 3 more of them here. One of the deck's most unique features, one that we saw much more in the post-Defenders meta, is the use of song cycling with Hearts as Strong as Horses in the Spectacle. In this deck, those can be used to get Dance Fever up to significant power levels. This allows it to function as somewhat of an aggro deck if it has to. Unlike a lot of control decks that might have included Phono Finish or Blackmail, the main deck runs Fashion Week, which meshes well with its chaos control and event recurrence strategies, and enables it to potentially earn multiple points in a single turn while keeping the opponent from getting much done. Given its heavy reliance on friends, opposing decks packing dismissal tools will give the deck a hard time, and the toolboxy nature of the deck means that a well-timed magical misfire, possibly in combination with it coming through, will remove most of the deck's tools. Farming decks that can't deal with the Frozen and Magicite will most definitely have a bad time against it, however.
Got a soft spot in my heart for Chaos Control.
There are 2 Chaos cards in this deck.
There are
But
3
it still
Chaos cards in this deck, sir.
3? Oh, right, Opal. Now, a other actual very notable weakness to this deck is if the opponent does not flip their main.
That is very true. It is a Pretender-powered deck.
Yeah, there is almost no orange entry in this deck.
Yep, you gotta mull for Factory Jack as fast as you possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
This has a lot of similarities in its first couple of turns to the old Terror Tantabuse. It's going to actually behave quite similar to it. It just has a wildly different win condition because it's not a combo deck.
Right.
Get your AT gens on the field and go dig, 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 dig.
And pray that your opponent flips their main, yes.
Yes, that's also very true.
Yeah.
Yeah, aside from Trading Traditions, the only other entry card is Dance Fever.
Yeah, Dance Fever and Factory Jack. That's it.
Yep. And Factory Jack, like I said, depends on Trading Traditions.
Yeah.
You've got Fancy Pants you can banish as well for white entry.
This is true. Or the
Oh,
two fancy.
that's right. There we go.
But yeah, if you don't get a Factory Jack, not only are you locked out of your orange, you're also locked out of your purple.
That's
Well, yes.
That's one of the risks of running Pretender.
Unless the opponent just kindly flips their main for you.
Right.
Yeah, I think that was a calculated risk on his part, just to get up to top 16.
Well, it seems to have worked out for him.
Yeah, it did.
Yep, interesting list. And I guarantee you we'll be seeing those control colors again.
Although not just yet, I think.
No, not yet.
Grand Pause, you want to tell us about your run to top 16?
Only if you let me say the full deck name.
No.
Nope.
We're
Okay, moving
we're
on.
skipping on. Okay, Bugle, let's talk about.
Oh, can I compromise and go with the middle one?
Yes, you may.
All right. So this is a top 16 deck called, among other things, So Now Go Moon 1,000 Years Bye Bye Banish Time. And anyone who gets that reference gets a cookie. It's an orange control deck using Princess Luna Dream Guide. And Princess Luna Dream Guide was no stranger to top 16 at Gen Con, following the trail of Waking Nightmare, a Chaos control deck from just 1 year prior. However, the manner in which she operated in 2017 was drastically different. Generally utilized in conjunction with Chaos Capital of the World to flip back and forth multiple times throughout the game, So Now Go Moon 1,000 Years Bye Bye Banish Time went completely off the rails and instead elected to simply use the momentum generated from banishing half the opponent's hand to leverage an early game control setup. Perhaps no other deck better exemplified the concept of playing the metagame, since this list was constructed with two particular goals in mind: be as disruptive as possible to toolbox control decks like VBot, and keep Bluna perpetually exhausted to severely hamper Hot Wings' ability to DFO. Nightmare Moon, Starlight Glimmer Chrono Trigger, and Nightmare Star all served their purpose in removing VBot's access to events, with Changeling Mimics adding an additional tax on playing them. And the Smooth Scavenger could ensure that even if an event ended up in a recurable location like the discard pile, it wouldn't be there for long. For the Hot Wings match, a full playset of Bailouts and Popping Corn, along with 2 copies of Under Arrest and a copy of Lasso Champion, could remove Bluna's big advantage in being able to double dip her power at each problem, thanks to moving her at immediate speed with Hasty Friends. With all that pink in the meta, though, there needed to be protection against large quantities of removal, and a full playset of Appaloosa served this purpose well. The strangest choice within this deck was to run up to 5 copies of Catajack, thanks to Xerox, not counting reuse from Changeling Infiltrator. And the reason behind this was that So Now Go Moon didn't actually need more than 1 or 2 friends to function optimally. It would try to lock down one problem with an Epic Troublemaker while confronting behind a Mimics, slowly gaining a point or so per turn. Since most of the other decks in the meta at the time were trying to play a relatively wide board, Catajack would have a larger overall impact on their board state, especially with cheeky synergies like Falling Rock Zone. There were still tough matchups for this list. Farming in particular was difficult to deal with, excluding Lasso Champion, since it didn't rely on friends to do much of its work. An early explosive play from Hot Wings could also make it difficult to match their point total by the time the end of round would be called. In spite of this, So Now Go Moon showed that control decks in the meta weren't just limited to pink-purple, and helped ensure that orange was represented across all deck archetypes at Gen Con: aggro, farming, combo, and control.
Where's the?
What about mid-range?
That's not.
Mid-range is a speed, that is not an archetype.
That's you said the M word. You said the M word.
Mimics?
He did say the M word. This is one of my favorite decks to play, just because, like many of the other decks that I've run at Gen Con before, it came about a week before the event came out, and it was just kind of a haphazard, let's see if this works.
Yeah, because we were sitting there for like a month before Gen Con still, being like, I have no idea what we're going to run.
We said that like a week before Gen Con.
We did say it
Yeah.
like a week before Gen Con. I mean, we were doing
I think I
testing of this
actually
deck
said
like
it-
2 days before Gen Con.
I think I even said it on like Thursday. Well, maybe probably Wednesday, I think it was.
Yeah, I seem to remember the number of Catajacks would grow every single time you were talking about it. You're like, yeah, we're running 2 Catajacks. You know what? No, we're going to run 2 Catajacks in a Xerox.
No,
Actually,
we're gonna
let's
run 3
Catajacks in a Xerox.
No, we went straight from 3 to 5.
Okay.
At that point, we were just like, no, Catajack is the thing.
Yeah,
I think it was like 1 at the beginning, though.
It was 2 at the beginning, yeah.
Or 2, yeah.
yeah. It was amusing to me that it would just constantly grow, and as the number of Catajacks grew, so did my dread. I did not want to play against this deck. Fortunately, I didn't.
Yeah, this was super fun. Chrono Trigger was especially great against the toolbox matchups because if you banished anything other than a friend or troublemaker, it was just gone forever.
Yep.
And in some cases, you might actually choose to let Glimmer pop, especially if Glimmer banished a Catajack in the process. Because then you just kind of look at your opponent's board with all those friends that were now going to enter play, and now all those are gone too.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. It had weaknesses, but I like
The
playing.
farm-
I like playing the meta game.
The farm matchup was painful.
The farm matchup was painful. If you could get a lasso champion out, you were just golden. But
Or even POW.
Or there was the magical happy Christmas time thing I did, but we'll get to that later.
yeah, you'll get to tell us about that in a minute. This was fun though. Next list.
Bugle.
No.
Another top 16 deck?
Oh, yes. I was 2 scrolled down. Oh. Yeah, so our next list is we don't have a name for this deck. It is just a vinyl white aggro deck and yeah. So not content with just the top 2 slots, Vinyl took a top 16 slot as well. This time opting for white as its only other color, as well as an aggro strategy instead of control. This particular build has 2 sub-themes. First, it's quite fond of borrowing the opponent's friends and retiring them for benefit. Second, it has a full playset of both Thunderhoof and Tender Taps, allowing it to return any of its 2-cost friends, of which there are several of various utility, back from the discard to play. And it has plenty of ways to get them to the discard as well. It's got the belly flops and the minuets, or, just home limit. A notable play unique to Vinyl aggro decks, and worth bringing up here, is the ability to use Berry Punch, All Night Partier, to flip Vinyl very early. A feat which can be done as easily as turn 2 by playing Berry to Concerning Cutie Mark, then playing any other 2-cost friend it can afford, or barring that, just moving Vinyl up to confront that way. This allows Vinyl to flip easily without getting behind on points. Due to the amount of friend removal, this deck can fare poorly if the opponent is not using many friends, such as at AJ Farm. Similarly, strategies that banish friends and or discards can make this deck's recursion strategy much harder to carry out. Other than that, however, it's got the tools needed to put up a decent fight against most decks. Yeah, this is Godot's deck. Hey, Godot. So did anyone here actually play against this? Because I don't think any of us did.
I don't think I got matched up.
I didn't.
I do like that it has both Berry Punch and Orange Swirl and Hoops.
Yes. Yeah.
You thought you could have some friends? Wrong.
Nope. Yeah, it really, really wants the opponent to not have friends. Oh, I missed the lilies too. Yeah, you can also use the lily to retire friends to recur them, or just get rid of the opponent's friends.
Interesting, it also runs a Saffron Marsala, which I don't think DJ typically does too much confronting. I imagine that was more for entry purposes.
I believe Godot picked that because he only had the 2 Sopranos and wanted a third card in that slot.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense.
That's definitely fair.
Tender Taps is wicked at bringing stuff back, particularly the
Tender
Berry Punch.
Taps is really good, yeah.
The Orange Swirl, Berry Punch and Orange Swirl is really fun to recur, along with
Soprano
and
Hoops,
Snip Snails.
Lily.
Yeah, all of those.
Yeah. Even bringing back Berry Punch and drawing a card, it's not a bad call.
Yep.
Yeah, this is
and of course a Singing Barrel plus a Soprano. Just fun times.
well, by some definition of fun, maybe.
Well, fun for you, not so much for your opponent.
Rarity loves encores.
It is a little risky on white entry, Of course, I mean DJ with trading traditions.
Six is standard for
It's
vinyl,
got-
and it is technically running 9. Yeah.
Oh,
it's actually got 8.
I keep forgetting Fancy Pants banishes.
Wow.
8 white. Oh, it has Singing Barrel. Yeah, that's plenty of white entry. Never mind.
Yeah. Yeah, and the trading traditions, if it decides to open with that.
Yeah.
I imagine it frequently opens with concerning cutie mark, though.
And the standards, cardboard box, and cracking the case to deal with those archetypes.
Yep, and vinyls. Or not vinyls, Sips and Snails. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, lots of good stuff.
Anyway, so Leo,
Yes.
I believe you brought a deck to Gen Con.
I
And
did.
I believe it made top 16.
It did.
Now,
Would you like to talk about it?
Before you go into it, Leo, I think we need to set the scene here a little bit, because that's honestly the thing that's most impressive about this to me.
Oh.
So Gen Con day 1 took place on Friday at, I believe, 10 in the morning, 10 a.m.
Yes.
is when everyone was required to report by. And you took a plane out the night before or early that morning because you had missed a flight.
I missed my flight to go to Gen Con. I was supposed to crash at the hotel room, planning to arrive there around 4 a.m. Because of my missed flight, I took off sometime before midnight. Did not arrive until 6 or 7 in the morning. By the time I got to the con itself and got registered, I sat down at the table with maybe half an hour to go. Fresh from the plane, carrying my bags, no sleep.
How long before Gen Con did you know that you had a hotel room?
Oh, the night before, or like a week before, I think I had a room. Not even that, a week before.
No,
Yeah,
I think it was that day.
Was it that day?
Yeah, you were like, by the way.
My head really was, I had a lot going on at work. I was almost not certain I was going to even go to Gen Con. And then it was just cracked some books, did some stuff the night before. So even the night before, I didn't get much rest to be able to finish my stuff at work, to be able to get on the plane, barely secure a room, arrive just before my first match, and barely had time to scribble down a list for the judges on paper and
All right,
then put this thing to test.
So tell us about this legendary list then.
Okay, so Lullaby actually had 2 outings last year in the competitive scene. Its maiden voyage landed it in a top 8 finish. I was not playing it at regionals, California regionals, against a field full of one-purpose madness. I was one of those one-purpose pilots. After that, though, it did place in the top 16 at Gen Con a few months later. Even though the deck is a blue-pink aggro deck headed by Bluna, it's different from Hot Wings in its playstyle. Well, Hot Wings features a bursty playstyle and high degree of point acceleration because of those beautiful high bonus point valued problems. Lullaby instead focuses more on movement and it has a toolboxy style element to it. That was geared more towards the control decks that at the time, like, we knew control was going to be brought to Gen Con, and Hot Wings was going to be the target, and I did not want to fall victim to the Hot Wings assassination attempts. Because Changeling Mimics was so prevalent and powerful in the meta at the time, Lullaby features almost entirely all friends. So that deck composition also became very important when playing the entry card Lyra Caroler, as the probability of revealing a friend at the top of your deck was very high and almost always moved a character to the problem in response. The Smooth Scavenger, as we've seen in a number of the control decks before this, was included in the deck as an answer to F-Stop specifically. There were a couple cutie markable friends in the deck, which weren't too popular in the meta at the time, but these were an important part of this deck. Cheese Sandwich, Partier in Training, was used instead of Snip Snails, problem solvers, to clear troublemakers, because Nightmare Star would not allow Snips and Snails to exhaust in order to clear it. And Party Mare, Party Philly was played because it's additional removal that was in the form of a friend that allowed Bluna to move as well. Then finally, Pinkie Pie, PFF, served as a tutor to find those answers when they were needed, as well as also triggering Bluna's movement. So the deck performed fantastically against other aggro decks and farming decks. Its main vulnerability was that it can be locked out of pink pretty easy, and when going against some control matchups, it really needed that removal. Otherwise, it relied on blue removal and actually performed pretty well without pink.
Yeah, that does look pretty greedy on the entry there.
Yeah, it didn't actually play pink until later in the game. It mostly started entirely on blue.
Yeah, so that's 6 pink entry and 2 trading traditions.
Yep.
It's pretty greedy.
It was very greedy.
Yeah, especially when you have 4 rec and 3 rec cards.
There's only 1 4-rec card, though.
Eh.
And a single Holiday Spirit would likely end up getting that for you.
Yeah.
It could.
The intro to this deck largely relied on Cloud Chaser, and the ideal hand was Cloud Chaser to lock and tree as the starting problem, because that gave 4 blue rec to go straight into Thunder Lane or Prince Rutherford on the second turn, which was a really awesome play. Or on the third turn, I should say.
How often are you playing Thunder Lane that early? Turn 3?
Well, it would have to be turn 4 after.
Okay.
But remember, Cloud Chaser, yeah, it was just largely a setup to be able to access all the blue, because blue is really important to get to because it had to wait for pink many times. Aside from that, I spent a lot of time practicing against VBot, and that's why so many of the control elements were put in here, just anticipating that that deck was going to do extremely well at Gen Con last year. And I almost opted to play it myself, to be honest, because I spent so much time playing it in practice.
You think this worked out a little bit better for you?
I think yes.
Yeah, imagine playing VBot on no sleep.
Yeah, I would not have been able to focus. I barely focused well enough to pilot this, and blue pink is far easier to pilot than many control decks.
Than tricolor hyper focus toolbox control. Yeah.
My other problem with piloting VBot is because it takes you run a risk against aggro decks in getting the control during the early rounds. When
you got to be fast. Yeah.
Unlimited time, VBot will almost win every time, but against a time clock, it's a little risky if your name isn't Bugle.
All right.
All right. Any thoughts? Final thoughts?
I will just call out that this is actually fairly trivial to convert to core legal.
Yeah, this unlike Hot Wings,
what about the problem deck?
This doesn't suffer much from the conversion at all.
Problem deck is completely fine.
The biggest thing it loses is the Cloud Chasers, actually.
Yeah, which we need in core.
Yeah, blue absolutely needs something like that.
You and your smoozes.
He likes his smoozes. Well, he's in combo central right now. Like, there's no way he can't run smooze.
I threw a smooze into my one purpose.
You were running smooth at Gen Con, Cheese. Like, you can't harp on him for running smooth.
I can harp on him for running smooth in an aggro deck.
But we were running it to counter toolbox control.
I would like to remind you. I'd like to remind you that nothing can stop the smooze.
Exactly.
And in this deck, I mean, the 2 powered friends or 2 cost friends still send 5 power to a problem with Bluna.
Yeah.
So
anyway,
let's move on.
All right, last top 16 deck. Cheese, take us through it. Did we actually have an entire year with no combo at Gen Con once Vapor Trail was banned?
We had combo in top 16. And this time, it was ModMat combo. So ModMat combo saw play sparingly in regionals and showed up at top 16 in Gen Con. And I think it even saw play at BronyCon. I don't really recall.
I believe
But,
there was one of those running around, yes.
It's an orange, purple, white deck splashing pink and blue. You know, combo, gotta run all the colors, except for yellow. Combo deck built around Mod Pie, Counteroffer, and Big Mac, Princess for a Night. And they interact in an interesting way, where if Big Mac's involved in a face-off, and they're both in play, then you get to flip your entire deck.
I'm pretty sure that
All of
wins you
it.
the face-off.
And you probably win the face-off. But we also have some chaotic cards. And this version of the deck, which I believe was run by Richard's brother Lion, only has the one chaos card. But
No. Big Mac too.
he doesn't even count. So basically, you get to flip your entire deck, and it wins by recurring Fashion Week, by bouncing Coco Pamel with Discord Wrathful to score 15 points in a single turn. Now, this is a great deck against decks which don't have answers to combo. But one of the problems is that this deck takes a lot of AT to go off. I think it's like 20 something.
Yeah, this one isn't using any of the cheating methods either. There's no Lotus Blossom in here.
Yeah, it does have the redeeming qualities. So you can get cost reduction a little. I don't know the math exactly on this one. It might be like 16 or something, but it's still quite a bit. And it is very weak to disruption. It's like, oh, you played Mod Pie? Well, that's getting belly flopped. And so with as much disruption as we've seen, the deck, I believe, had quite a challenge, but it did make top 16.
To be fair, that is what the vote is for.
It is. But now you got to get into blue additionally, and what if they frighten? Now you have to have even more AT.
Yeah, this
But
one
it does
running Appaloosa for protection or anything.
Yeah, it is running 6 AT generators. And it's also the main is actually ambassador of friendship over the Muffin Mare, which we've seen in other versions of this deck. And of course, you have to boost your opponent's power to Fashion Week, and yeah.
Yep, like we said, variants on similar decks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, probably the biggest problem that this deck has is it doesn't have a single answer to Changeling Mimics. And when you're relying on 0 action token Fashion Weeks, and suddenly it costs 3 or 6, you're in trouble.
Yep.
I believe our variant had some answer, but it's not a great answer. Because Mimics lasts until, like, even if you get rid of it, the spec is still there.
Yeah, I think we were running Cracking.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
So you get to wait yet another turn. But
Well, that takes us through all of Gen Con Top 16, so I think we just have 2 more to mention here.
I think one more? Oh, no, 2 more.
One to go into in depth, and then 1 more to mention in passing. Yeah. And those were from BronyCan, correct, R? Those
were, in fact, from BronyCan.
What did we see in the land of the poutine?
I can't answer that on stream. What we did see in the CCG room, however, was BronyCan's previous year champion returning, and took it all again with an upgraded version of the deck called Please Ban This Main. As with before, it's a vinyl blue aggro deck that focuses on cheap movement, confronting as fast as possible, and digging through its deck to find enough acceleration, disruption, and tricks to punch through just about anything. The addition of Angel Wings and Concerning Cutie Mark lowers the barriers to confronting significantly, while Spitfire and Belly Flop give it even more power to deal with the opponent doing basically anything with their friends. The rest of the deck is filled with solid cards for a movement aggro strategy, including a rack of Rainbow Dash on even ground, which is always a sight that puts despair into the opponent's heart.
True story.
The deck is, however, extremely greedy on entry. If it loses Trading Traditions before it can play any blue friends, or if all of its blue friends are removed after Trading Tradition is gone, it is pretty well up a creek. As such, it is vulnerable to mass removal. Most everything else it has decent answers for, making it no surprise that the deck once again took BronyCon.
Yeah, we talked about Leo's deck being greedy on entry. Doesn't hold a candle to what this thing is.
It's entry?
One Trading Traditions, that's it!
Yeah, Trading Traditions, that's it. I hope you get an Angel Wings in your opening hand.
Is it
Or-
safe to say that Commentary as Magic does not endorse running a single copy of Trading Traditions as your only entry for your secondary color?
I mean, it's better than running nothing.
That is the greediest greed of greediousness.
To be fair, it is vinyl that, given a turn 1 Deep Darkness, is pretty much guaranteed to flip.
Okay, sure, but
turn
I'll-
2
I'll-
DFOs. have
yeah,
it.
the Hot Wings meta, yo.
Yep.
Or
It's
turn
risky.
1 Sips and Snails your Trading Traditions.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of... It's good analogy to Skystar Chicken, so I think on that ground alone, I'm inclined to condone it.
I will never be able to condone this. This would absolutely not.
Okay, I must be clear. When with Skystar in the meta, this goes from to
This wasn't
Yeah.
even an ad. That's being generous.
Well, it wasn't an for you anyway.
It's not an ad for any sane-minded individual.
Okay,
Sometimes
so
you have to be a little crazy to end up winning. I'll grant you that much, but
so what you're
there's
saying
not
is
even
I'm
2 Trading Traditions in the deck. There's 1.
nah, so what you're saying is I'm good with it, right? Okay, good. Yep.
All right.
So, I also like that there are 3 other starting problems in this deck.
As if it would run anything other than Trading Traditions.
Right, yeah. I mean,
Well-
they're there because they're easy to confront. Like, I
Yeah.
understand, but it's just
Come
very
on.
amusing to me.
But you know what? It has resource removal, and so I'll give it props for that.
Yes, it does have two trashes.
Okay, to be fair, again, this was previous meta, so resource removal wasn't quite as mandatory as it is now.
Oh, Study Session was floating around.
Wasn't quite as mandatory.
Yeah, Uneven Ground is really the thing that sets this deck apart. There's a lot of Hot Wings tools in here, but the playstyle is very different just because it's taking a more controlling role.
Not just that, it's sitting there going, you know what? I think I'd rather just beat that troublemaker up by coming after it with about 50 power. 15.
Does have a changeling can change.
Yes, it does. And speaking of that, we will briefly touch on the thing that took second place, which was myself piloting the deck that I'm going to call Mandatory Subtitles.
But which was actually So Now Go Moon 1000 Years Bye Bye Banish Time. But which was actually, we
Nope.
hear you have
Nope,
misunderstood.
nope.
Our intentions.
Thank you.
Okay.
That
Let me.
was that just the exact same build?
Yes, it is. I believe the exact same build.
So can't even talk about variation. So yeah.
Nope. I took this and piloted it to a second place finish after a very tough game against the deck that's currently on stream. That a changeling can change is what did it. And on that path, the deck didn't always quite perform like I wanted it to, but it had the duels to get the job done, even in weird, messed up situations.
So that was the Defender's meta. It went everywhere.
Yes, it did. And it went everywhere pretty quickly, too.
Yes, it did.
It was like Hot Wings, and then, hey, look, a combo deck. And then it was, all right, no more combo deck, back to Hot Wings. And then now it's Toolbox Control.
F stop, F stop, F stop.
Stop, F stop, F stop.
No, just 3, remember?
6 if you do dip.
That doesn't need to dip in the pool of some F-stops because I need more than 3 F-stops.
Ugh.
Xeroxing F-stops. It's more likely than you think.
Yeah, Defender's meta was wacky, and it was short-lived, but it burned brightly. I think we can all say.
Yes.
It was
Yes.
also one of the first opportunities we had to really see a global meta established, and that was really cool. Even if it was just with the Hot Wings style decks, that thing got played so much in so many different places that it was impossible not to see or track its progress across different play groups. But you know what's going to be even more interesting than the DOE meta? The
Core.
Equestria and Beyond core meta.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Speaking of which, guess what has completed?
Fluttershy?
Fluttershy has not completed.
Miles.
She has not become her final form.
She's not even a tree.
No, Coco.
Yes, Coco number 1 is
Coco Pamel.
done. We got the last results in, I believe, late last night.
Mhm.
And Ara has been busy crunching numbers. Lots of numbers. More numbers than your body has room for.
It is actually just a pretty big wall of look at all these statistics.
Yep.
But no
so
worries.
Look forward to that soon.
Yeah, we're going to get those up
Tonight
as soon as
or
we can.
tomorrow?
The full numbers, maybe not immediately, but I'd like to get deck lists up as soon as we can.
Yeah, so look for that post in the next couple of days.
To piggyback on that, reminder, there is still 1 week left for signups for Coco number 2. We did extend the deadline, so the deadline for that is going to be 9 p.m. Pacific time, which is 5 a.m. Universal time, 1 week from today.
Yep. So you have a week and 30 minutes.
So you can sit there, you can look over what deck lists were undefeated in Coco, and you can alter your own existing one. You can play an entirely new deck. You can throw the same thing at it, whatever you want to do.
Well, whatever. No F-stops.
All right, no F-stops. No stops.
So you can look forward to seeing those results to get an idea of what you have to face and maybe make some tweaks to address those.
Yep. We look forward to seeing you all compete again.
All right, so we have a message from Godot. Godot wants to name his deck list right now.
Sports.
Oh, okay.
Sports. Okay.
Why
And-
sports?
Go for it, Godot.
Godot. The T is
It's
silent.
Godot.
Oh, Godot.
Yeah, like the play.
Ah.
We'll see what he says. Anyway.
No. What?
No. While we're waiting on that, a reminder, con season is coming up here. It's everyone's favorite time of year, unless you're sick like I am, and then you just dread it. Con season is, just under 2 months away now? We're starting with Babs?
Yes.
Starting with Babs, going into Everfree, maybe going into High Roller PonyCon, not sure yet.
And then into
Yeah, I'm still fighting off this thing. Get your flu shots, people.
Then once
But one of the fun things that comes about with con season, in addition to competitive tournaments, is, well, there's sometimes wacky events, like
Fluttershy?
Villain Challenge.
Well, what about Villain Challenge?
Well, we've been teasing Villain Challenge Queen Chrysalis for a couple weeks now, and
Who?
I think it's.
I believe
would
you mean
hiss.
Best Pony.
Best pony.
Best Pony.
I mean, I don't see any changelings.
Of course you would.
So
That's because you're a changeling. Only a changeling would say they don't see any changelings. Wait.
So we can take a look at a little bit of information here on a sneak peek of what I am assuming to be the main character for Queen Chrysalis Villain Challenge.
Applejack.
Yep. It's totally Applejack.
Absolutely Applejack.
It is actually Applejack.
And there's a few things to note here. No home limit.
There are
The
no home limits in the hive.
and lots of changelings entering play.
Yep.
That's kind of mean.
It's exactly as mean as it. Wait, what?
No, I have to say, we have actually completed the first test of this. And it was pretty good.
Let's just say that some of those token friends that are really easy to put in play, they come back with a lot of power when they're changelings.
Yes, they do. Anyway, that will about
Are
wrap
we
up our
going to
discussion.
spoil colors, or is that it?
What?
You can see the colors from the image. It's blended.
Yes, but it's subtle. I'm not
We'll-
sure if they'll be able to tell.
We'll do more info later.
Fair enough.
That will about wrap up our discussion on the meta retrospective for today, though. And we would like to give a big shout out to all of our patrons on Patreon. Thank you so much for your regular support. And if you are watching and you aren't a patron, but you enjoy what we do, please do consider donating, because doing so will give you awesome rewards like the ability to vote on polls to determine what future videos we produce, a chance to share your own deck creations to be reviewed live, and even the ability to challenge members of Sim or other patrons to featured duels using some wacky rules. We have also updated the frequency of those duels from a one-time reward to once per month, so it's even better to be a patron now. If you have comments or questions that you would like to send our way, or if you're just interested in hearing what we're working on for the future, there are many ways that you can stay in contact. We have our Patreon, as mentioned previously, but we also have a Facebook page, which is facebook.com/commentary-is-magic. We're on Twitter at CIM_CCG. You can email us at commentaryismagicteam@gmail.com, and patrons at or above the $5 per month level get access to our Slack channel where you can chat with us live any day, anytime. If you are looking to watch any of our previous videos, including tournament recordings, you can find them on our YouTube channel, which is linked in the sidebar. Please make sure to subscribe so we can actually have a channel URL that makes some amount of sense. With that, thank you to our special guests, Leo and Critical Thought. Critical is already gone, but Leo, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you to each and every one of our viewers, both here now and watching this recording later. Next week, we are going to be highlighting the results of Coco #1, so that's going to be something to look forward to.
Should we also mention that Godot has shared his name, No Brakes on the Value Train.
Oh, okay. Cool. No brakes on the value train.
We are, as always, Commentary is Magic. I am, as always, Grandpaws.
I'm Emperor Bugle.
Big Cheese?
Arcat and special guest.
Living Silver.
And we'll see you next week for our review on Coco #1.
Core's looking good, folks.
That it is. Have a good night.
Right.
Bye-bye.